through crazy circumstances, ended up calling the house later that day. And my older son answered the phone and told me Matt was taking a nap. And I said, well, don't bother him. He goes, well, I'll go check on him. And I said, no, leave him if he's sleeping. And my son went up, and he was slumped over in his room. And my son screamed. And I just left the office and went home. And we went to the hospital. And he never regained consciousness after that. He was in the ICU for 4 days. And then that was it.
About 2 in the morning, the phone rang, and every parent's worst nightmare, that phone ringing in the middle of the night. And one of the hardest things I had to do was come home and sit down with my 10-year-old and tell him that his brother was hurt really bad and that I couldn't bring him home and that he passed away. I mean, it impacts the whole family.
I have a friend whose daughter is an addict right now, and she says, I mean, her daughter's alive, and she tells her, you know, Mom, there's nothing you could have done. And you know that everyone tells you that someone who's addicted has to take care of it themselves, but as a parent, you just never really believe, you know, you just don't feel that way. You feel like, I'm the mother, I should have done something.
Like with heroin, you don't care about anything, you know? I would go days without eating because I was just high and I didn't care that I was hungry. It just gets you through, you know?
The single most important social issue we face in Orange County today is the heroin epidemic. It has created an entire new group of people that have been exposed to the drug that have never been exposed to the drug before.
Nationally, it began to trend in about 2010, the tremendous increase in deaths. In fact, deaths due to opiate addiction surpassed motor vehicle accidents across this country. So the awareness began back then.
It's so common that one of the parents that I talked to for this article, when he sees an obituary in our paper, in the Times Herald Record, of someone who's young, in the 18 to 20-something age, and doesn't see a cause, he assumes it's drug use.
You can find heroin in all 3 cities. You can find heroin in any of the 20 towns, 19 villages. You can find it within 300 yards of this building.
We were initially battling prescription pain medication abuse in the community. These substances have similar addictive qualities as heroin does. And when the state started to crack down and they passed legislation such as iStop, and they made it very difficult to obtain these substances from multiple doctors, many of the people that were addicted on these pills started to resort to the cheaper version, which is heroin.
Parents might be aware that their kid has tried alcohol, or the kid has tried marijuana, or maybe now he's smoking marijuana. I need for them to know that the next step for that kid could well be trying a friend's Ritalin prescription, trying the OxyContin that are in the medicine cabinet that grandma uses, trying Xanax that is prescribed to mom. And it starts very innocently and recreationally. That kid is just a breath away from beginning to use heroin.
It is a problem. 1 out of 12 high school students try or will try opiates before the time they are 18 years old. That's a problem.
People want to believe that you're insulated somehow from addiction, that where you live determines whether you become addicted or not, but that's just not true. So in our communities where you don't expect to see it, we have people who have money, we have people who are insured, so they have access to prescriptions. And it just makes sense that ultimately you're going to replace that opiate with another opiate when you can no longer get the prescription drugs, and that's where heroin comes in. No economic class is safe from addiction.
It may only take a kid's blown out knee to be on painkillers for a couple of weeks to want more once they're better and graduate from there.
A lot of people start out with doing that. It's a similar feeling to heroin. It's pretty much the same thing, you know, it's just synthetic. But it's an expensive habit to do pills.
Heroin is very cheap. In some places in Orange County right now, a baggie of heroin can be purchased for about $4. So, common misconception, it is not a tremendously expensive drug, and that's why it is so pervasive in Orange County.
From what I know, it's just as easy to get as weed sometimes, which is very easy to get.
I know for a fact someone that was a heroin addict, they could get a bundle of heroin for just $80.
Yeah.
And for $20 too, I know you can get.
I've
They
heard
call them
even $20.
stamps, like the smallest way you can get
You
them.
can absolutely go into your friend's house or even your house and just go in the cabinet and take whatever.
And kids will take them and they'll sell them up to other people who will take them, and they'll get hooked on those and be like, this is awesome. But then when those are harder to find, you run out of money, then you go to heroin and like cheaper drugs, and then that's, I think, why it's such a big problem.
If their friend is doing something, heroin or something else, that they don't want to be the one who tells on them.
Yeah, definitely.
You know?
They don't want to be the person to let their friend down. And
a lot of people just instantly label those kids as like bad kids and don't hang out with them because like that'll get you. If they're not bad kids, like.
I mean, you could be doing heroin, you can be
You
a
can be
great
like
kid, you could do great in school.
Yeah, that's
And that's Wake. There were a few kids that people did not want to allow into the Wake because they felt they had an influence on Matt becoming involved with the heroin. And my friend's daughter, who's like 27 years old, said to me the next day, she said, you know, I saw that one kid, he did come into the Wake. He looks like a regular kid. And I said, he is a regular kid. It's not his fault. You know, they all start out as regular kids, and then it turns into something else.
In the last 16 months, I've met so many people from all walks of life who have gotten stuck in this mess. So, it's becoming almost cliche that addiction doesn't discriminate.
Problems are what society is about, but it's how you deal with the problems. And what we have to do with the heroin epidemic is we have to talk about the problem. We have to have our children, our parents, our educators, our leaders understand that there's no shame in having someone that's addicted in your family. There's no shame in understanding that this is a societal problem. We have to be able to take the step to understand and tell people that if you need help, you can get help, that there's a road to recovery and it can happen. And Catholic Charities is the leader in our county in doing that.
There are unusual people who can wake up one morning and decide they're not going to use anymore, but they really are the minority. Most people go through awful withdrawal. Abstinence is, of course, the goal, but we celebrate 1 week's worth of abstinence. We look at the short term and then motivate and coach to get them into that next week.
This is treatable, it can be stopped, and that's why the work that we do on the front lines at Catholic Charities is so important, to get kids in and their families in for treatment.
Be involved in your kids' lives, ask them questions, monitor what they're doing, just be a parent.
I don't know exactly what I missed, but, to try to really be aware of how your son or daughter is acting, and if something doesn't look right, to really question it.
We have to get the kids that haven't done it yet. They need to be educated. If we can cut off the demand and get these kids on the right path, then I think we can get over the hump eventually. But it's going to be a long fight.
From our perspective at Catholic Charities, I think one of the most important things the community members can do is to support our fundraisers, to support dinners like tonight, to get out and really help us expand our services, expand our role. I mean, we have a financial need. These services don't come for free. We have a lot of money that we have to spend to help people, and if the community could support us, we will be able to do so much more to help so many more people.